In this episode, you'll learn vocabulary, idioms and expressions connected to friends and friendship. You'll also discover who the Tooth Fairy is. And we'll share some free resources you can use to improve your fluency in English. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello, and if you're a new listener to the podcast, you're very, very welcome. I'm Craig.
And I'm Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us, Reza and I are going to help you improve your English and take everything up to the next level. How are you doing, Reza?
I'm doing well, my friend. As ever, I'm really looking forward to recording this podcast about a topic which really interests me.
Me too. And speaking of friends, we have a voice message from friend of the show, Ebiana from Argentina.
Hello guys, this is Ebiana from Temperley, Argentina. This time I want to contact you to share something that we usually do in Argentina when children between 5 to 9 years old lose their milk teeth. When a tooth falls down, the child places the tooth under the pillow on his bed. And during the night, Pérez Mouse, we call him Ratón Pérez, comes to the house and while the child sleeps, picks the tooth up to carry it. The mouse puts some money and chocolate coins under the pillow instead. Do you have this habit in your country? Thank a lot for all your work. Big hug, stay safe.
Thank you, Ebiana, for your lovely message. Reza, did your parents give you money for your teeth when you were young?
Yes, they did. I can't remember up to what age exactly, but when I was very young, the Tooth Fairy did come and visit me.
Yeah, mine too. In fact, when I discovered that my parents were giving me money for my teeth, I took out all of my teeth and then I got lots of money. And now I don't have any teeth. But one thing Ebiana did speak about is putting the tooth under the pillow. The pillow, Pillow, is the soft thing where you rest your head when you go to bed and go to sleep. So yeah, we did that in the UK when, as a child, my tooth fell out. As Ebiana said, the milk tooth, which is the first tooth that a baby has and then eventually falls out, to be replaced by the permanent tooth under the pillow, and my parents would give me some money.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. And I had heard of El Ratoncito Pérez. Yeah, they have him in Spain as well as Argentina.
But we don't say that in English, do we? We don't say the Pérez mouse. What do we say?
It's the Tooth Fairy. So she flies about and leaves. I just got money. We didn't get any chocolates, but I did get that money. Not much from my parents, but a bit.
And one thing, Ebiana, be careful with that phrasal verb. The difference between fall out and fall down. So you said it when the tooth falls down. No, when a tooth falls out, because it falls out of its place in your mouth. A person can fall down in the street. So you're walking along and there's something that you don't see and you fall down, or fall over is also similar.
One other little thing, Ebiana, you talked about children and you said between 5 to 9. That's strictly speaking not correct. You have to say between 5 and 9. Or you could say from 5 to 9. But you shouldn't mix the two things. So between and or from to.
And thank you very much, Ebiana, for your message. Next, we have another message from Abder from Barcelona, who has a problem speaking English.
Hello, my name is Abder. I'm from Barcelona. I have been in London 2 years, 6 months ago. I want to improve my English. I have a problem to speak because I can't communicate with the English people. That's my problem. I not just to talk, to communicate with someone. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Abder, for your message. I'd like to correct one small thing that you said right at the beginning. Be careful how you're using the present perfect, Abder. You said, I have been in London 3 years, 6 months ago. That time expression ago is more often used with the past simple. So it's better to say, I went to London 3 years, 6 months ago. Use the past simple when you're using the time expression ago.
And Craig, have you any advice for Abder? He says he wants to practice speaking in English.
Well, we do have some websites that we can recommend to you, Abder, but before that, I want to play a voice message that we recently received from Isaac from Mexico.
Hello, Reza and Craig. How are you doing? My name is Isaac. I have been listening to your podcast since 2020 and you are doing a great job. Congratulations. Regarding the episode number 400, I want to make you guys a proposal. First of all, let me thank you because over your podcasting years, you have built a great community all over the world of people who want to learn, practice, and improve their English. I am part of that community. Moreover, your podcast helps me to practice my listening, and I am happy because I can understand almost 99% of what you are saying in the podcast. In addition to practice my pronunciation, I started a podcast on my own to teach and at the same time to practice my English. You can listen to the podcast at teacherisaac.com. However, I feel I need to talk to someone to practice and improve my English. I think it is possible that many of your listeners, so I came up with the next idea. Have you ever thought of building a membership site of community? I mean, the people who listen to your podcast, we have something in common. First, we want to practice our English, and second, for sure, we all have an intermediate or advanced level. So it will be perfect if we can find and contact a person to practice with. There are other options, but are not as affordable as I wish, for example, Prepperly.com. The membership site of community would work as the following. The member would pay a monthly fee and he or she would have access to a social network, see who is in their contact and schedule a Zoom meeting to practice their English. He or she could contact as many people as he or she wants and practice English with a lot of people of different countries to ensure the only way to communicate is in English. Thank you very much for listening this audio and best regards from Mexico.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for your message. It was really good to hear from you. And you have, as I'm sure you know, excellent English. It was very clear and we understood absolutely everything. Any comments, Reza, on Isaac's message?
I would just repeat the same as Craig. I can't think of anything I heard there that needs any correcting. Your English is really good. You've got a good advanced level. And I like your idea. It's a very good idea. The idea of somehow forming a community of people who listen to the podcast so that they use that community to practice speaking English. Very good idea.
Yep, it's definitely something we would consider for the future. So when we have more time, then we will definitely look at that as a possibility. At the moment, though, Reza is very, very busy with his classes and his teaching work, and I'm also very busy on marketing and promoting my B2 First course. So for the next few months, it's not going to be something that we'll look at. And for that reason, for you and for Abder and for anyone who is looking to improve their speaking and their fluency, Reza, we can help them with some websites that I think we've mentioned before on a previous podcast. So what are the free ones that people can use without actually paying?
Well, you can get some free practice on italki.com. There's also the option of getting a teacher there, but there is free practice on italki. That's italki, italki.com. Also on hallo.tv. So that's www.hallo.tv. And speakingclub.com, which is free for one meeting per week.
And Isaac also mentioned a website called, I think it's Preply or Preply. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It's preply.com. And all of these links are in the show notes. So go to episode 406, inglespodcast.com/406. You'll see the links to these websites. Now, Preply is very similar to italki from what I can see on their website. You can pay for fluency practice with another speaker, and they also have a free service, I think. So check those websites out. I think you'll find them interesting. If you would prefer to pay for a private teacher, we'd recommend our friend Lynn, speaking of friends, and her website is putitlikethis.com. So Lynn is an ex-colleague of ours and a good friend, and she would be delighted to design a course for you to improve your speaking fluency.
Okay, Craig, shall we have a look at some vocabulary about our main topic today, which is friendship?
That's a good idea, mate.
You said the word mates, M-A-T-E. A mate is another way of saying a friend. Can you think of any other words, Craig, for friend?
Yes, mate is obviously more informal than friend, and you can also use the word pal, P-A-L. So my pal, my mate, or my buddy, B-U-D-D-Y. I think that's more common in American English, would you agree?
Yeah, buddy. And pal in American English and Scotland. They love the word pal in Scotland. Hey, pal, by the way. Very kind of Scottish, isn't it? What are you doing, pal?
What you up to, pal? And if pal, mate, and buddy are informal words for friend, is there a more formal word that we can use?
Yes, although the meaning changes slightly because it's a more formal situation, we could say acquaintance. But an acquaintance doesn't necessarily have to be a good friend. It's someone you know, but you may or may not exactly consider yourself a friend, but yeah, you know them. So that's an acquaintance. What you call in Spanish, un conocido, rather than un amigo, an acquaintance.
And be careful of the pronunciation of friend. The spelling is F-R-I-E-N-D, but those two vowels I-E have the pronunciation E. So it's friend, my friend.
Craig, friend or foe is a common expression. What's a foe?
It's the opposite. Foe is another word for enemy, F-O-E. Are you friend or foe? You might shout to another soldier who is approaching your camp in the middle of the night. Stop, halt, friend or foe?
We've already mentioned the noun which we get from friend to describe the action of being friends, that is friendship. We've also got the adjectives, or they could also be adverbs. They serve as both. The word friendly, yeah, you have a friendly relationship, you're friends. Or indeed the opposite, unfriendly. If you have an unfriendly relationship with someone, you're definitely not friends.
If friend is the noun, the verb is to befriend someone, to make someone your friend, to make friends with someone. And the opposite, and you may know this word if you use Facebook, is to unfriend someone. Very common on social media. You unfriend a person, you stop being their virtual friend on social media platforms.
Yes, I would say that for social media, but I wouldn't say it for the real world outside social media, though, I would just say to lose a friend. So you make a friend or you lose a friend. But if it's online, you can say to unfriend someone.
And in real life, you can say to fall out with someone, the phrasal verb to stop having the relationship. I fell out with my friend.
Now, we mentioned the word earlier, acquaintance. That means it's not a close friend. So a close friend is a good friend. You might even be someone's best friend. Or, in other words, you're a dear friend or a trusted friend. Someone they can trust, someone they know will help them.
Did you have a best friend when you were growing up in Belfast?
I didn't actually. No, I just had several friends who kind of came and went. What about you?
Yes, I had a best friend because I didn't live very close to my school. So I had my friends, my school friends, my friends in school, my classmates. But I had a close friend who lived in the next street, and his name's Graham. And we are in touch today as well, although he lives on the other side of the world, so I don't see him very often. But we met when we were 6 years old, and we've been best friends ever since.
Would you say you're still the best of friends?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We're still the best of friends, although we don't see each other very often. Or maybe that's why we're the best of friends, because we don't see each other very often.
Now, there's a type of friend you don't really want to have, and that's a fair weather friend. So a fair weather is when the weather's good. So obviously it's an idiomatic expression, fair weather friend. It means a friend just whenever things are easy, like when the weather's good. When it's easy, when it's no problem to be your friend, they're your fair weather friend. But if problems arise, if you're in a difficult situation and you need their help, then you discover they're not really your friend. That is a fair weather friend.
So I could say that a fair weather friend is someone I can't count on or rely on. If you count on or rely on someone, then you can depend on them. They're good friends.
Craig and I have some mutual friends.
We mentioned one earlier, Lynn.
Exactly. So Lynn is my friend and Lynn is Craig's friend. She is a mutual friend, a friend of both of us.
I mentioned earlier the collocation with friend is to make friends. You make friends. But it's difficult sometimes, especially when you get older, to make new friends. Can you remember the last time you made a new friend?
A couple of years ago, I made a new friend. Yeah. And it was the owner of a restaurant that I frequented. And we ended up. To end up means after a process, something finally happens. We ended up being friends. So I don't have to go to his restaurant now to see him. I might meet him for a coffee. So it started as a professional relationship, but it ended up as friendship.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned my friend Graham earlier. I could say that he's a childhood friend. Childhood. When you are a child, that time of your life is your childhood. CHILDHOOD, the time when you're growing up as a child. So a childhood friend or a lifelong friend, a friend that has been close to you all of your life, a lifelong friend.
Coco is a good friend of mine.
Hello, Coco.
So I could say in a way that Coco is my best friend because he's man's best friend. So there is an expression in English, man's best friend, but really what we're talking about is dogs, because dogs are known for their loyalty, their friendship to people they know. So our four-legged friends, so Coco has 4 legs, so he's a four-legged friend. He is man's best friend. He's a dog.
Reza, have you ever had a friend with benefits?
I have. I'd rather not go into great detail about what the benefits were.
Perhaps we should explain them.
Without going into detail, let's just say that the benefits that I had were more than platonic. So a platonic friend is a friend who's just that, a friend. but you don't have any romantic involvement. They're just a friend.
No sex.
No sex, no sex. But if you have a friend with benefits, it's more than just platonic. It's more than just pure friendship. There's a romantic involvement, let's say.
But there's not a relationship there, correct?
Not necessarily, just benefits. So I wouldn't call them a girlfriend, but yes, a friend with benefits. It's that gray area.
Another common collocation with the word friend or friendly, the adjective, is a friendly face. A friendly face. Some people have very friendly faces. And if you see someone who you haven't seen for a while, or maybe you're feeling uncomfortable at a conference, for example, and suddenly you see somebody you know, you can say, "Oh, it's so nice to see a friendly face. I was feeling a bit lonely. I was feeling a little bit by myself. But now that I've met you, it's really nice to see a friendly face."
And the last piece of vocabulary I can think of for our list so far is a friend of a friend. You know, whenever sometimes you hear about something that happened to somebody that you vaguely know, but you don't know them that well, they could well be a friend of a friend. So they're not your direct friend, but you have a friend who knows this person quite well. They're friends, but not you. Then it's a friend of a friend. So you might say, "Hey, did you hear what happened to that guy, Peter?" And somebody might say, "Who's Peter?" "He's a friend of a friend." And then you tell them the story of what happened to Peter.
Moving on to some idioms and sayings connected to the word friend. Have you heard the expression, "a friend in need is a friend indeed"? Or I prefer to say, "a friend in need is a pain in the neck." But what does it mean, Reza? A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Well, this saying expresses the idea that if somebody asks you for something as a friend, if they ask you for help, well, then they really are a friend for asking you, because the fact that they've asked you, that they trust you to help them, shows that they consider you a friend. So almost take it as a compliment. Consider them a true friend for asking you for help.
There's a saying that I like very much that goes like this: keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Reza, is that good advice or is it two-faced? Two-faced means you're not being honest, it's deceiving, you pretend to like someone, but really you don't like them.
I think it's two-faced. I don't like to do it myself, but I can imagine in certain situations it's useful. I'm thinking about, for example, the world of politics.
Yeah.
Very often it operates that way. So a politician who considers another politician a threat, a rival, will seem to be very friendly, but it's just because they want to know what that person is up to, what they're doing. So they treat them in a friendly way. They might even make them believe they're a friend, but just to know what they're up to because they don't trust them. I find that two-faced, to be honest.
Now, I could say that any friend of Reza's is a friend of mine. Well, why would I say that? Because if I don't know a friend of Reza, why would I assume that that person is a friend of mine? Well, I think you can judge people by the company they keep, which means if Reza likes a person, I'm 100% sure that that person is a good person and that possibly that person could also be my friend. So a friend of is a friend of mine. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine.
Craig, do you have any friends in high places?
Yes, our friend Johnny is very tall.
Ah.
And he lives on the 6th floor.
Well, he lives in a high place. It's true, he lives in a high place, but we wouldn't say that he's a friend in a high place. No, we mean by that he's influential, he's important.
High status.
High status, a high flyer, a VIP, something like that. You don't have any friends in high places like that, do you?
Unfortunately not. No, I don't know any powerful politicians or rich business people, so I don't have any friends in high places. Do you?
No, not that I can think of, unfortunately.
Our next saying is, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Imagine, for example, you have a friend, but the friend does something very bad to you. For example, reports you to the police, or steals some money, or does something really bad. You could say, well, with friends like that, who needs enemies? That's not a friend. Really, that's saying that person is not a friend. They're bad for you. They're not a good influence, or they're not doing things in your best interest.
And the last saying we've got for you is a very old one. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it's typical, again, in the world of politics or for wars, if you can imagine conflict between countries. The enemy of my enemy. So if you've got an enemy and there's a third party, another, could be a country, it could be another politician, let's say, who's the enemy of that person, well, you've got one thing in common. You don't like that person. And this other party doesn't like that person. So, hey, they could be a friend because you have a common enemy, not a common friend. That's where we get the expression, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Reza, do you think it's better to have just one or two close friends or a large group of friends?
I think it's good to have a medium-sized group of friends. Not too small, but not too large either. Because if you have too many friends, I believe it's hard to get to know them all very well. But if you depend on only one or two friends, well, you might need them someday, but they could be busy because people have other things to do and you might need the help, but they might be away, they might be on holiday or something like that. So I think it's a good idea to have a kind of medium-sized group of friends, not too big, not too small. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I also think that when you're younger, you tend to have a wider group of friends. And as you move through life, I think you appreciate close friends more, and maybe your circle of friends gets smaller in most cases, but those friends also become very close friends. Do you agree?
Yes, because I guess by the time you get into your 40s, 50s and older, of course, you know what you're looking for in people, or you know what you like, or you know what type of person you're going to get on well with. So people that 20 years ago seemed to be suitable friends for you then, now you'll realize that they're not, because, well, you get to know yourself better the older you get. So you know who you're going to have a better friendship with. I think that's basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever had an imaginary friend?
I haven't, no. But I know people who have, people who talked to someone who wasn't there. But it's like, oh no, this is just my friend, and they imagined, it could have been a person, or in some cases an animal. Like, oh, he's a bear. It's like, oh, I was like, what bear? It's like, oh, well, he's not real. He's just my imaginary friend. So kids maybe who wanted to amuse themselves. Have you ever been in that situation?
Not an imaginary friend, but when I was very young, my parents sent me to bed early. And in the UK, sometimes my parents would send me to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, which is early. I wasn't tired. I didn't want to sleep. So I used to get under my covers, under my blankets, my sheets, and I pretended I was in a battleship or a tank. And I would speak to people in my bed and say, hey, we're being attacked. Fire to the left, fire to the wardrobes, defend the windows. So I pretended that I was at war under my sheets in bed, talking to people.
Did you ever shout out, friend or foe?
No, I didn't. I should have done, but I didn't. I was very strange as a kid.
And Craig, have you ever had a friend with benefits?
No, I haven't. Which is a shame, really. I think I would have liked to have had a friend with benefits, but it didn't happen for me. No.
And what about a friendship that started off platonic, so just friends, nothing more than that, but developed later into a romantic friendship or relationship? Have you ever been in that situation?
Yes, I have a couple of times, but they never really lasted. I think the relationship changed when sex was introduced. So the relationship started platonic, but then with romantic involvement, then we grew apart and it didn't work, which is a shame because then you lose a friend sometimes.
Yeah. Of course, it doesn't have to be that way. Many very happy couples who've been together for years started off as platonic friends and then it moved on to a more romantic nature. So it doesn't have to always be difficult.
Yeah, that's true. Reza, I think we're going to link in the show notes to a song that people can use to help practice their listening. Is that correct?
That's right. Some of you will recognize it, I'm sure. It's a very old song, but it's a classic and it's a song I've always enjoyed.
When You Need a Friend?
That's it.
And there's also a link there with the lyrics, so you can first listen without the lyrics to see what you understand from just listening to the song, and then listen to the second video or watch the second video where you can see the lyrics or the words to the song to check what you've understood. But now it's your turn to practice your English. We would love to hear from you. Why not be a good friend and send us a voice message? You can reach us by voice on SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Emails, Reza?
You could write, if you prefer, to craig@inglespodcast.com or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And we remind our listeners, if you're interested in buying a course to help you improve your English, we do have some for sale on the Mansion Ingles webpage. Go to store.mansioningles.net.
As usual, we'd like to thank all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast on Patreon. If you're interested, you could join the scheme for as little as $1.20 per month. The 20 cents is to pay for the VAT tax. And for that donation, as a thank you, you get an instant access to all the recent audio transcriptions. If you're interested in donating, have a look at Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. There's a link in the show notes.
And we'd like to welcome our latest Patreon supporters. Unfortunately, we can't mention every person who's supporting us, but people who have joined this month are Carles Casasola, thank you very much, and Sergio Munoz. We really appreciate your support. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, we're going to talk about the IELTS exam.
So we'll talk about IELTS next week. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, have a wonderful week. It's goodbye from Reza.
And it's cheerio from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.